Today we're going to talk about the tell me about a time you failed question. And in this question, whenever we talk about negative questions, you want to start by understanding, as always, why is the interviewer asking you this? What are they trying to learn? Assuming they're well prepared. You can always assume they were kind of, and I always assume that they were kind of hungover and they didn't prepare at all and they have no idea what they're doing. But assuming they prepared, they're asking this for a reason. And what is that reason? Well, the first thing, they want to understand how you deal with stress, how you deal with struggles. What are you like under moments that aren't totally going your way? How do you handle these situations? They want to understand how you learn from it, right? And I think that's the most important part of this question. We're going to talk a lot about learning. They want to understand how you learn from challenges. How do you grow? Are you going to make these same mistakes again? Right? Do you understand why you made these mistakes? How do you learn from situations in which you were unsuccessful? And then lastly, and now a little bit different from what we talked about the first 2 days, they want to understand, do they want you to be a part of their journey? Right? The first 2 days, we said, do they want to be a part of your journey? Are your accomplishments so wonderful? Are your strengths so well eloquent that they want to be a part of your journey? Now, when we're talking about weaknesses, they're like, do I want this person involved in my success? Because I am awesome. I am the interviewer. I am the best. So I want this person with these particular failures or weaknesses involved with me. So that's the context under which we want to approach this question. How do you do under stressful situations? Do you learn from your mistakes? And do I want this person to be a part of my journey? So let's talk about some tips here. First things first, you control the narrative. You get to say anything that you want to say. And this may seem obvious. It's an interview where they're asking you questions and you're giving answers. But think about it. This means when you're talking about a failure, you need to find that middle ground. You don't want to talk about the time where you accidentally left the stove on in the kitchen and you blew up the office. Probably not the failure we want to go with. Or when you're an accountant and you had an error so bad that the company had to go under. Maybe not the error we want to go with. But you also don't want to say, oh, my greatest failure. Well, in college, I once got a B plus, and that was a bummer, right? We don't want to say that either, because if that was your greatest failure, you're not a very interesting person to me. So you've got to find the middle ground and remember that you control the narrative. So find that failure that is realistic, that is interesting, that really had meaningful negative impact on something, because that's what I'm asking you for. How did you handle negative impact? What team did you put around yourself? What safeguards did you put into the future? Whatever. What is a real failure that is not a catastrophic failure? So that's the first thing. You control the narrative. Remember, this is your story. You get to tell whatever story you want. Make it thoughtful, make it real and poignant and impactful, but don't make it cataclysmic. Don't make it the thing that, oh, I started global warming. That was my fault. Let's not do that failure. Next, share an honest story. So this is related to the last one, but I also want you to be analytical about it, right? This is, if anyone watched Queen's Gambit over the last year, awesome Netflix show. She's a young chess player, and she plays the best player in the world, and he beats her. And she's just ashamed. She's shook. I can't believe I lost. She spends the next year reconstructing how she lost, what mistakes she made, what she did wrong. Some of those mistakes being bad chess move. Some of those mistakes being, spoiler alert, she got super drunk before the game and really probably shouldn't have played it. But that's okay. You should watch the show. What mistakes she made. She got really analytical about it. And then she came back, happy ending. She beats the guy. So when you're talking about your failure, I want you to share an honest story, but I want you to analyze it. I want you to say, these are the decisions that led us to make, or these are the ideas that we had that led us to make those decisions. This is what I believe went wrong. This is what could have been done better. Give me some sort of analysis that says you know what you did wrong. And by the way, you should be the one taking the blame. Don't blame it on other people. Because if I'm listening to you and saying, do I want this person to be a part of my journey? I definitely don't want somebody who's going around blaming everyone else. I want somebody who puts the blame on themselves and analyzes it and says, here's what I would do differently. Here's how I would approach this differently. Here's why I made the decisions that I made, but here's where I could have improved. So give me some sort of analysis on your very honest story. Now, the last part of it here, share what you learned, right? Share where you improved, because that is what I'm looking for when I'm asking you this question is this person going to make these mistakes again? Do they make them once and then they're done? Or do they make them once and they're like, yeah, well, that wasn't a big deal. Let's move on and hire me so I can do the same for you, right? I want to understand that you learned from this. And there's a few ways of sharing that. You could share just in a philosophical way. And I learned this, and these were the mistakes we made, and I wouldn't do this again. You can learn this in I implemented a plan in the future way. I made this mistake, and that led us to create these guardrails so that it never happened again, right? What was your strategy to prevent that? Or, and this is the best, if you have it, you could share it with a failure that then led to a success. How great is that? If you say, I failed for these particular reasons, I learned from it, and then later when a very similar situation came up, I succeeded. That is a great way to structure this failure story. So for example, the way I would answer it, if y'all don't know me, I like to do sales at startups. I like to be the first salesperson there when the product, sometimes even before the product is launched. So let's say I'm interviewing for a startup and they're looking for their first head of sales. And they ask me, tell me about a failure. I'd say, well, my senior year of college, I was a professor came up to me and said they had this great idea. It was like Airbnb for the outdoors. People go camping, fishing, hiking, swimming, golfing, throw events and weddings on private property. It'll be great. It'll be big. We got some really big names involved in that. And the company ended up not succeeding. And the biggest reason was basically indigestion. We did too much. We had fishing properties, we had hunting properties, we had wedding properties, we had places where you could go for a hike with your dog off leash. We had places where dogs weren't allowed. We just had so many things. The product got overwhelmed. Our users didn't know what to do, and it was just too much going on. And the reasons we did that is because we thought we had to be broad. We thought we had to be open to all outdoors people, because someone who likes to take their dog off leash also likes to fish, also wants to have their wedding outside. That was our idea. But it really led to these detrimental issues. And after a few great years, the company didn't work out. But I really learned that it's important for a startup to be really focused in their product and their sales efforts. My next company was the head of sales for a self-driving car company. And when our CEO wanted to go really broad and serve florists and grocery stores and auto parts businesses and restaurants, I advised them that we should really stay super focused and super niche, only work on this one particular industry. And that led to us closing some of the biggest deals in the self-driving car space really early on, right? I shared a failure. I took the blame for the failure and said, I made a mistake and we went way too broad and did too much with the product. And I shared what I learned and then a successful story. So ideally, if possible, you're able to split up your answer into those different categories.